on campus. And so today we're just going to be talking about the scholarship application that our office hosts.
So one thing, a couple of little housekeeping tips is that you're just going to get us on camera at the very beginning and the very end of this webinar. We're going to get started with the webinar and we will be off screen. Brianne will be facilitating the webinar, and if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function on Zoom. I have 3 panelists that I'd like to give a shout out to Brad Horton, Kat Parpana, and Julie Zeck. They are 3 academic counselors in the Dean's office. You can also use the Zoom webinar chat function, but it will help us in managing your questions if you use the Q&A function instead. Then we can track which ones we have answered and maybe make sure that we get to as many of them as we can. Okay? So again, Q&A function for any questions that you have, and you can use the chat, but it will help us answer your questions if you use the Q&A function. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So we are going to disappear, and I'm going to turn this over to Brianne.
Okay, so like I said before, we are going to be going over the undergraduate scholarship application. This is the application that our office hosts. It's for all UC Davis scholarships that are given through the campus, and we're just going to be going over the application and how to fill it out. So facts and statistics. Basically, why you specifically as a student in the College of Ag should be applying for this scholarship application, what the scholarships kind of look like, what the application looks like, and then how you are actually selected for the scholarships. So, go here. We have one application for all of the scholarships offered through our office and through the campus. So that's over 300 different scholarships that we're awarded, and it's a one-stop shop. So one application for all of them. It's not like outside scholarships where you're applying to them individually. One application for all the scholarships. And the process is a little bit different. If some of you have gone through, if you're an incoming freshman or an incoming transfer student, you actually didn't need to complete an application to be considered for scholarships for your first year on campus. That is going to be different for the rest of the time that you're on campus. So you have to fill out an application through our office every single year to be considered for scholarships. It's in the fall, so it's happening right now. And then it closes in the beginning of the winter quarter, and that's what you're applying for the next year. So you're applying in the 17-18 academic year for 18-19 scholarships. And then we have a committee of faculty members that read through all the applications, and they're scored, and that's how we actually award you the scholarships. They're all merit-based scholarships, and you would hear from our office if you were awarded a scholarship during the summer. Okay, so all of the awards, like I mentioned, are merit-based, so we're really trying just to recognize your academic achievements and encourage you to continue down the path that you're going down right now. Scholarships, of course, can help you with the cost of attending UC Davis. It can also help reduce the amount of loans that you're having to take out. And as you can see, we are awarding a lot of money. Over $4 million is available through this application specifically. Our scholarships range from $100 to $13,000 for the academic year. So it's a lot of money that we're trying to give out to you guys. And the only way you can receive this money is if you complete the application. So we have a very good chance, hopefully, of getting something. We want to give it to you. And specifically, we want to give it to students who are in the College of Ag. So I'm going to kind of throw out some numbers and show why it's so important for you guys specifically to apply for our scholarships. The College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences has by far the most amount of scholarships than any other college, thanks to the donors wanting to encourage students in this specific field. Obviously, we are an ag-centered campus, so that makes sense that donors are trying to give back to students who are studying this field. 40% of our scholarships that we are awarded are specifically just for students in College of Ag. That's more than any other college by a long shot, 75% of the college specific, so donors can say that they can really make any requirement they want for scholarships. So some will not have a college component. They don't care which college you're technically in. So that's 45% of the scholarships we award. They are just going to be based off of other requirements, not specific to your college. But Most of them do specifically say that you are going to be in a certain college, and that's 40% of those scholarships that we award are just for College of Ag. So that's a large portion. As you can see from the graph, it's more than any other college. So there are a lot of people who are trying to give money specifically to you guys.
Wait.
Sorry,
You said 40% of all campus undergraduate scholarships are going to students in our college.
Absolutely.
Okay,
so
wow.
It's a little over $1.6 million that we're trying to get in the hands of students who are attending College of Ag.
That's awesome.
So it's a lot of money. Like as you can see, it's more than any other college. So you guys really are the ones that should absolutely be applying, because you have the most opportunity of getting money because people want to give it to you. Wow. And then going a little bit more into the divisions. So within the college itself, so within the College of Ag, there are specific scholarships that they want to give based on which division you're in. So the majority of them just require that you're in the College of Ag. That's 53% of the scholarships we award. As long as you're in the College of Ag, you're good to go. That's what they want to look for. However, there are some that are based within which division of the College of Ag you're in. So agricultural sciences has the most based on division. But like I said, 53%, it doesn't matter. Majors specifically, plant sciences, animal science, and biology departments have the most amount of scholarships available. And so with all those majors under those three departments, those are the ones that have the most scholarships specific based on those majors.
So can I ask you about this pie chart?
Yes.
So it says divisional right here, and this is all divisions?
Yes, so that's not specific.
Okay.
It's just as long as you're in the College of Ag.
Okay. And then this ag number right here, this orange number?
That is agricultural sciences.
Okay. And then this little number here, it indicates HS? Horticultural sciences?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Yeah. I wanted to call that out because in our college we have 3 named divisions of agricultural sciences, environmental sciences, and then human and social sciences.
Yes.
So there's money that is specific right here to students that indicate they are interested in horticultural sciences.
Correct.
Okay. And then the third little pie chart here is the EN, and that is specific to environmental?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So it does matter technically which division you're in, but the majority are open to all of them. So really, as you can see from the first pie chart, as long as you're in the College of Ag, that's going to get you a lot of scholarship opportunities just based on that alone. Okay. So hopefully that showed you guys a little bit more of why we're reaching out to you specifically, because you have so many scholarship opportunities and we really want to award as many students these opportunities as possible. So now we're going to be moving on a little bit more into what we're looking at for the scholarships. So types of scholarships, they can really be based on anything. Donors can dictate what requirements they want for their scholarships, and then we in our office figure out which students meet those requirements. So most common are major colleges, where you live or where you went to high school, and if you have any special interests. Those are some main ones that we look at, but any of those listed on the screen right now, that's what they are going to be looking for, and that's what we're trying to find from you guys to match you up with the scholarships. Donors can really make up any requirements. Even if they said that we had to find a student who's 6 feet and taller, we would have to find a student who's 6 feet and taller. They can really, that's their money, they can kind of dictate whatever they want. So by you filling out the application, you're letting us know that you meet these certain requirements, and then that'll help us match you up with a scholarship. So a little bit about our selection, how to apply. You're applying, like I mentioned before, the academic year prior to when we actually are awarding. So you're applying right now in hopes that you get a scholarship in the 18-19 academic year. The application's already available right now on our website, and it's going to close January 9th, so you have a little less than 3 months to fill it out. And all you need to have is a 3.25 GPA cumulative from UC. So if you are coming in from high school or you're coming in from a transfer school, we're not going to be looking at your other GPA anymore. We're just going to be looking at your UC GPA. So this is important to note for, let's say, incoming freshmen or transfers. It's really just the fall GPA that we're going to be looking at. Obviously, winter grades won't be available by January 9th, so you want to make sure you're having a really strong fall quarter and meeting that 3.25 GPA in order to be considered for scholarships. And then one note for if we have any seniors who might be graduating early, you do need to plan to attend at least 2 quarters. So that goes for students who might PELP or, withdraw, or also most specifically for seniors who might graduate at the end of winter quarter instead of spring.
So there is a question I think would be good to address here. And so if students apply early, do they have a higher chance of getting a scholarship than if they wait until the closing time to apply?
No, we do not look at, it's not like the FAFSA or anything like that where you want to get it in under a certain deadline. We just need it in by January 9th. However, and we'll go over this a little bit further in the presentation, when we talk about letters of recommendation, that is a component of the application. So we do advise that you get started on your application now, request those letters of rec now, because we only are going to be getting into the holidays or finals where some professors or other people might be busier. So we do recommend you get started on this now, get your letter of recommendation request in now, but it will not matter if you turn it in tomorrow or on January 8th.
And then 2 little pieces I want to remind you all. The chat is very active, but it will help us in making sure that we answer your questions if you use the Q&A function on Zoom. And the other thing is, back to sort of the content here, Brianne, you did mention the 2 quarters of attendance. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to put in a plug in there that you talked about if a student withdraws or PELPs or something. I would encourage students to come to the dean's office to talk to us about how PELP and withdrawing can affect you academically. But definitely, if you're getting a scholarship, you should be talking to the scholarship office as well about what the outcomes could be in those circumstances. They're rare, but they're important for you to know about.
Definitely. Okay, so back to the application. You can complete the application on our website. So just visit our website, which is listed on the screen. You will get taken to the academic works page, which is the host for our application. You'll sign in using your regular UC Davis login, and then you'll be able to complete the application, submit your letter of recommendation, all of that online. It's very easy and hopefully user-friendly. Okay, so this is the portal that I was talking about. You've already gone to our website, you've clicked the link, and this is where you'd get inputted. So sign in with your institution. This is where you're just going to be signing in with your normal UC Davis login. Just as a small note, if your references ever have a question on how they sign in, it's going to be the exact same website. It will just be the second tab that says references and reviewers. So just as a quick note, if they ever have trouble logging in, that's where they go. You're an applicant, so you're going to be on this slide. This is what our application looks like once you're getting in there. So this is what the first thing that you'll see is, this is just the basic part of the application, your age, expected graduation year, major, minor, all of that basic information about yourself. Please note quickly at the top, there's a second tab that says frequently asked questions. So if you ever are having trouble with the application, maybe take a look there, see if it's already been answered for you. And then of course, if you're still having trouble, feel free to contact us. And then the next thing that you're going to see on your application is the letter of recommendation request. So we need you to at least have one recommender submit a letter for you. However, you can request 2. So your first one you submit is your primary. The second one you'll submit is your secondary. So for whatever reason, the first person you request the letter from isn't able to turn in their letter, we'll then read your second one. But if we get your first recommendation letter, that's the one that we're going to read. So just make sure you're doing it in the order according to that. To input the reference, you're just going to select the add a new reference. A box will pop up with all of their information that you'll input there. And then as soon as you submit that section, they'll get an email that you've requested a letter of recommendation, and you'll get an email that you've requested it from them. And then add another answer. That is where you actually add the second letter of recommendation request. So you'll be adding 2 of those.
So I have a question.
Yes.
And just when you add the new reference, and will they be notified immediately that they've been added, or until the student submits the request? So
that you will add the reference, add all of that information, and then I believe you have to press the save function if you're not going to complete your application right then and there, which is perfect. You can save your application as many times as you want, get in there, work on it a little bit, etc. But you will need to save it, I believe, for that letter of recommendation request to go through.
Okay.
But you do not need to complete your application. And we would actually recommend you probably request your letter and then request your letter now. And then if you want to continue working on your application, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to do it all in one go.
Okay. And who's the most common people that you get doing letters?
So that actually is going to bring me to my next slide. So letter of recommendations. We say that they come from professors, teachers, anyone even someone who's non-academic. So it does not need to be from someone at UC Davis. If you're coming from a high school or a junior college, you can absolutely go back and request the letter from someone over there. You can even request it from someone in the society. So if you're really involved in your church, or you did a volunteer experience, or even a work experience, and you bonded really well with your supervisor, you could even ask them. They would be speaking a little bit differently. They wouldn't be talking in their letter about you as an academic, because they really would only know you outside of the classroom, but that's perfectly fine. You won't be looked down upon if it's not from someone from UC Davis or it's not a professor. We are completely fine with you requesting pretty much from anyone, as long as you're not related to them. Okay, so how to request the letter of recommendation. Going kind of back to what I said earlier, we do advise that you request your letter sooner than later. So 3 to 4 weeks before the letter is due, I would get in there right now if I were you and request that letter, and just give your person as much time as possible to complete the letter of recommendation. That way it's going to be a better letter because they have more time to work on it. They're not going to feel rushed, and they're not going to forget about it once they maybe go on winter break and then kind of forget that that's going to be due first weekend the new year. Choose well. We want to make sure you're choosing someone who really does know you. That's why we say, if you're new to campus, maybe don't select someone from UC Davis that you've only known for a few weeks. They might not know you as well. They might not write you as good of a letter as what we're looking for. So feel free to go back to someone who you've known for a few years and really knows like you as a person and can speak on your behalf. And maybe provide some more information to them. Say it's from someone you haven't spoken to since the spring when you attended their class. Maybe connect back in with them a little bit, send them an email, ask them out to coffee, and just let them know what's going on in your life now so they can write you the most updated letter possible, and let them know how your quarter has been going so far at Davis. So check in with them, provide any information you think that they might want to include in your letter, and then be gracious. Let them know, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to write you the letter. It is a lot of effort that they're going to be putting into the letter, hopefully, and taking a lot of time to write you a good letter. So just make sure to be thankful for them and let them know how much you appreciate it. And then maybe going to, okay, you don't have someone that you really feel strongly with. You still have some time where you can maybe get someone on campus or connect with someone a little bit more so they can write you a really good letter. Or even if you're thinking ahead for next year and you want to get a professor from Davis to write you a letter, this are kind of tips on how to connect with them and get to know the individual who could maybe serve as a recommender later. So consistently attending office hours, getting more involved on campus, taking classes from more than just one faculty member so they really get to know you, keep in contact with your instructors. So just checking in with them on a regular basis, once a quarter, once a year. Like I said, getting involved in campus, so attending events, maybe volunteering and joining some clubs. So those are all outlets that really are going to get to have you get to know various people who hopefully then can serve as a recommender later on.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I didn't see it in there, but maybe I missed it. If a student already has a letter of recommendation, hard copy, can they submit that?
That is a great question. No.
Okay.
So you are requesting the letter of recommendation online on our website. So you have to submit that request. Your recommender is going to get an email where they go log into the site and then submit their letter. So if they've already written you one and they just want to update it really quickly, add some new info, make it more specific to scholarships, that's perfectly fine. But they're going to be the ones that actually have to submit it online. We can't take a letter from you. It has to come from your recommendation, and it has to be online.
And it has to be online?
Yeah.
Okay. So faculty can't run into the scholarship office?
No, we're not going to accept it that way.
Okay.
Okay. So now going a little bit deeper into the application. So this is the part. You've already requested your letter, and now you're going to be writing your essays. So there's 3 small essays that we do require as part of your application. They're really just about you. We want to show off how much of an amazing student you are, let the faculty members who are going to be reading your application get to know them and kind of get an idea of where you're going, what path you're going down, and why a scholarship could really help you achieve the goals that you've already set. So the first one that we're going over is the personal background. This is our largest essay. It's only 400 words, but each essay gets a little bit smaller. So this is your larger one. You're briefly going to describe important personal experiences that you've had, maybe talk about your family or the community that you grew up, and really how it influenced you and your development and how it's kind of brought you to Davis. So we want to know more about you and how you came to Davis and kind of what made you and molded you into the person that you currently are. Quick note for all of our essays, I would recommend that you write them in Word or another format outside of the application and then copy and paste it in later. I just find that some students will get timed out of the site, various things like that. So that's what I would recommend doing outside and then copying it in, but it's totally your preference. So that's our first one. The second essay is about your academic and career goals. So you're going to briefly describe your academic and your career goals and how you plan on achieving them. Like we mentioned before, scholarships really are for us helping you pursue your goals and going down the path that you're hopefully going to be going down. So we want to know, what's your end goal? What are you doing? What actions are you taking to achieve all of these goals? Because scholarships obviously are going to help you meet them. So just give us an idea of what your plan is. And note this one is 300 words. So like I said, each essay does get a little bit smaller. And then the final essay is your personal interests, describing your personal interests, hobbies, or any accomplishments and how they've had an impact on your life. Note, we really don't want you to just reiterate exactly what you said in the first 2 essays. So make sure you're bringing in new content and more information. But I like to think of this essay as kind of your catch-all. So if you've thought of something that you really wanted to bring up, but you didn't have a chance or it didn't really flow right to put it in your first 2 essays, this is where you'd want to bring that to our attention. So even if I was planning on writing these essays, I might bullet point some ideas of little concepts or outside accomplishments that you've made that you want to bring up into your essays. I would bullet point those, list them all out, and if you've had a few ones that you couldn't bring into the other essays, this would be a perfect time to put them in here. So kind of think of it as your catch-all. It's only 200 words, so it is pretty small, but this is where you just want your final ditch effort to show off how amazing student you are and bring up anything else that you haven't brought up yet. So those are the essay portions, and now we're going to get into the rest of the application. So the other section after your essays is your employment history. So you have 5 submissions for this one. So you'll enter the title of your job or your position, the employer, your list of duties, and then the dates that you were employed. And so you can just click the add another answer at the bottom. That will keep adding. And like I said, you can add up to 5 of those. So just give us an idea. Have you had any work experience? Have you had any internships? Did you volunteer? Those are all good things to put into this section. And you don't have to put 5 if you don't have 5. Just put as much as you want, but 5 is the max that we'll accept. And then the next part is your extracurricular activities. So again, this is 5 that you can list, and you can list your extracurriculars, any organizations that you're affiliated with, if you've held any offices, or if you've got any awards or honors. This is where you can put it in. Feel free if you want to include them from high school or community college, that's completely fine. We just want to know if you've had any great accomplishments. And same thing, you can click the add another answer to add those 5. You don't need to add 5, but that's the max that we'll accept. Okay, this is now getting to the part where I think is the most important. So this is actually part of the application that it kind of gets more overlooked from students, but I think it's the most important part. So I'd highly recommend that you fill this out. You actually have 7 submissions for this one. And these are the restricted codes. So basically, like I mentioned before, donors can kind of choose whatever they want requirement-wise for their scholarships. And there's some really weird ones that they select, and they're hard to award. So this is where you're telling us, oh, that one hard scholarship that you can never find a student for, I meet that criteria or that requirement, and then you list why. and you kind of explain it to us. So this is really you self-reporting things about you that we just can't see from your application or your information in the system. So this is where you kind of are helping us out a little bit. So
this doesn't necessarily overlap the information that was already provided.
So these you'll see in the list, if you click for easy reference, please click here. That's going to bring up a page where it has hundreds of restricted codes. Some of these, they might be you're in a certain major. We can see that already in the system, so that's where it overlaps. So maybe don't choose that one. Maybe
you only get 7.
Because you only get 7, so you want to make sure that they're really good and you're using them smart. So maybe choose one that we would have no idea that you met that criteria. So one, for example, is that you were a member of FFA. If you didn't bring that up in your essays, we might not have any idea that you were ever a part of that. So that's where you might use that restricted code to your advantage. You select it, you explain, I participated in FFA for 4 years in college or 4 years in high school. I did this, that, and that is good enough for us. And that would have you self-report that information to us that we would have no way of knowing before.
That's great.
Yep, so click here, we'll bring you all those restricted codes. Just go through all of them, choose the 7 that you think you meet. If you don't meet 7, that's completely fine, just do whichever ones you do meet, but I would try and choose 7 of them. So go through them all. Obviously, if you don't meet 7, that's completely fine, but this is a good tool that I would highly recommend that you utilize. And then going in, these are the restricted codes once you open up that page. These are the different categories. So academic major, affiliation with a group, special conditions, career interests, miscellaneous. So like I said, there's tons of these. These are some of the ones that are harder to award. So maybe looking at these specifically.
That's why it's a good thing you're on the webinar.
Absolutely. So yeah, I've chosen ones that maybe are specific to College of Ag. I even have some really hard to award ones. So if anyone's looking at that page or they just want to jot these down, animal husbandry, dairy, agricultural economics, career in agribusiness, career in production agriculture, all of those are scholarships that are criteria for scholarships that are extremely hard for us to award. So if you meet any of those restricted codes, I would highly, highly recommend selecting those as part of your 7 and explain to us why. Just note that just because you selected it, even if you don't really meet that criteria, we're going to research it. So we're going to make sure that we can see somewhere that you really do want to have a career in agribusiness. Because if you're taking classes that have nothing to do with that, or you're in a major that has nothing to do with that, that's not really going to make sense. So make sure that you actually do meet those criteria. But if you do meet any of those, that's going to be really great for you because we have a very hard time awarding students in those areas.
Can you read those again?
Yes. So the 2 listed, cattle improving grazing lands, dry land farming, and then the other ones that I had spoken about before are animal husbandry, dairying, agricultural economics, career in agribusiness, career interest in production agriculture. So those are all really hard to award. Take a look. If you meet any of those criteria, maybe choose that as one of your 7. That would be a very good idea, I believe.
Cool.
Okay. So before you submit your application, obviously we want to make sure you proofread. So these are faculty members that are looking over your application. You wouldn't submit an essay to your professor without having proofread it. So same thing here. These are faculty members. They definitely pay attention to spelling and grammar. So make sure there's no errors because you really could get marked down on your score for that. And have someone read your application, as many people as possible. So a friend, a roommate, a tutor, the more people who are looking at it, the better. And check for clarity and content. So have them look at your essays. Are they making sense? Are they flowing nicely? Are you concise? Because they are pretty small. So are you making sure you're getting to the point and you're not adding a lot of fluff? Maybe have someone who doesn't know your background and your history as well. So as someone from an outside perspective, does that make sense? Because obviously your friends know your story and they'll get it. But does someone who doesn't know your story and has never met you before, does that still make sense to them? And then if all else fails, campus resources, the Student Academic Success Center has been more than willing in the past to look over these essays. So they are obviously a great resource. They do get a little bit busy around finals week. So maybe have them look at it a little bit before then, or else they might not have a chance to read yours. But they in the past have been a really great resource for our students. Okay, so this is the page where you'd actually have finished your application. I had not finished my application, so that's why it looks a little bit different, but this is your home page. So when you go back into your application to work on it a little bit more, you would do the needs action where you can get into your general application again, work on it, and then when you actually submit it, you'll see that it's finished. At the top, it will say general application submitted, 1 of 1. You can also see that your reference letters have been submitted by your recommendation writers. So right now, no one has submitted their letters of rec for me, so it says 0 of 2. And then you can go onto that third tab at the top where it says My Applications, Opportunities, and References. References will bring you to this page where you can see exactly who you asked a letter of recommendation for. In the status, it still says requested. You can even resend the request. So if it's been a couple weeks, a month, and they said they've never received the email, resend that request. Maybe it went to their spam mail. Maybe you want to double check their email, make sure you inputted it correctly. We've had students who just miss one letter and then they never received the letter. So that's why we do recommend you get in touch with your letter writer in person, send them an email, go drop by their office, say, okay, this email is going to be coming to you from Davis. I would like if you could write me a letter of recommendation. Is that okay? Get their approval beforehand and let them know that they are going to be expecting that email so they can see it and then hopefully get it on top of it quickly. But this is kind of your home page. So if you ever want to take a look at exploring these are the areas that you'd want to look at. And then we're going to be talking just a little bit about, well, now that you've completed your application, how do you actually receive the scholarship? So like we've been talking about, it is a faculty committee review who are looking over your essays, and there's 2 parts within their score. So there's the objective, which is your GPA, hopefully a 3.25 or higher, and that obviously we can't change. It is what it is. That's going to be part of it, but it's not anything you can change. It's a concrete number. The subjective part, though, is the application itself and the score that you're given from that. So you have 2 readers who read your entire application, look at your letter of recommendation, and look at your transcripts as well, and they're going to assign you a score, and those 2 scores go in with your GPA to get a score that our office looks at, and that's what we actually are looking at when we're awarding you a scholarship. So if we're looking at one, let's go back to the restricted codes, that's very specific. So we're looking at animal husbandry. We'll look at all the students who meet that criteria, and then we'll look at the scores for those students. So if you have the top score and you also meet that one animal husbandry criteria, you'd be the one that we'd be awarding the scholarship to, and we just go down that list. So you want a high score, and then you also want to be meeting the criteria associated with the scholarship that we're trying to award. That's kind of how it works, and like we've already mentioned, you will hear from us in late spring or summer. You would get an email from our office congratulating you that you've been awarded a scholarship, and you'd also see the award posted on your My Awards with the rest of your financial aid. Okay, and that's it. If we have any other questions, aside from right now, which I'll answer any questions you have, but in the future, if you think of something later on, we are located on the 2nd floor of Dutton Hall. You just go up the stairs and you hang a left. This is a photo of our office if you're walking down the hall. You can always email us or even give us a call, and we are more than happy to help you. If you have any questions once you actually get into the application, you see it, something doesn't make sense to you, we definitely want to help you. So feel free to contact us.
So we had a question come in.
Yes.
Could you talk again about how does the GPA factor into the score? And then I want to add into that, what about for new students that don't have a UC GPA yet? So how does the GPA work into the score, and how does new students without a GPA? Okay, so the GPA is going to be based, if you're a new student, purely on the fall quarter grades, because that's the only grades that we're going to have available. Like I mentioned, we can't go and look at your high school or your transfer GPA anymore. We're only going to be looking at your UC classes. So the only grades that are going to be available is fall. So it's the only GPA we'll be looking at. And the score is complicated, so I can't really go into exactly how the calculation works for it, but the score is based off of your GPA and then the score that the 2 readers from the faculty committee give you. So those 3 parts get put into a calculation, and then it inputs a score for us, and that's what we go off of. So it's like a whole separate standard.
There's a whole, it's a whole calculation. Yeah, it's very in-depth and complicated, but your GPA is one part. and then your score is the next. So you could have a really high GPA, but if you don't put in a lot of effort into your application, it's kind of so-so. It's going to even out. And same thing if you have a lower GPA, but you really do a great application, it's going to improve your score overall. So even if you're a little bit scared, you know, you only have a 3.25, if you really do strong in your application, put a lot of time and effort into it, it's going to show in your score and it's going to be higher.
Now, I always get the question, will the scholarship office review my personal statement and tell me, is my application strong?
We could do that later on. So you need to complete your application, everything like that. Oh, you mean while they're working on it?
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
Instead of like, you know, you listed all those people.
Yeah. We just know we do get a little bit busier.
Right.
So if we have time, we are more than happy to do that for you. If you just come into our office or send us an email, we will look it over. Obviously, we're not the faculty reading it, so we can't say
That's true.
if they're going to think that it's a really strong essay or not.
Yeah.
But just based on our history of working in the office, we could say, you know, maybe that doesn't make as much sense, or it doesn't flow right, or just give you little header points and tips, but we're not the people who are actually scoring it. So we can't tell you, oh, that one faculty member is not going to like this. That's just something we wouldn't know. But we are available to help, so feel free to ask us.
Okay. And I think I know the answer to this question from the one that was just submitted, but would we then submit our application after we get our GPA? So
sometimes you're gonna, I mean, you're on the academic side. I don't know exactly if grades would be official then. I don't think they are.
No, so the deadline for the scholarship application is in January.
January 9th.
So we keep our fingers crossed that we're going to get official grades in December. So, but usually we're getting them in the first week of the quarter, like early first week of the quarter. So hopefully students are not leaving their application
Definitely not
to January 9th.
Absolutely. Yeah, so if you are on that cusp, you don't know how your fall quarter is going to go, or you're a continuing student and you're close to 3.25, but you're not exactly there yet, we would encourage you to fill out the application now, just assuming that you're going to reach that 3.25 GPA. And if you do, great, you've submitted your application, you've already been working on it, it's probably going to be strong. If you don't meet that 3.25, it's not anything bad against you. You can still submit the application now, and if you don't meet that GPA level, we're just not going to read it. So there's really no harm in completing the application either way.
Okay. So we don't have any more questions. If you have a question, ask it now. We still have plenty of time. So I'm trying to think what else. And panelists, if you have any questions that came up for you or you get from students, again, our panelists are Kat Parpana, Brad Horton, and Julie Zeck. If any of you have any questions that you think you hear from students as well. So can you talk about, I get students that tell me that they're afraid sometimes to apply for a scholarship because they think they're going to lose financial aid money.
So that is a misconception common though. So if you are awarded a scholarship, we are going to do everything in our power not to reduce any like grant-free money. That's the last thing that we would want to do. So in the world of financial aid, there's a lot of things that we can reduce before we'd ever touch any free money, grant money that you're getting. So loans are very common. Obviously, we'd love to reduce your loan indebtedness, but there's a lot of times where we can just put it straight onto your account and it's not going to affect anything. So there's very small situations where we would ever have to reduce grant money. So it's really going to be in your benefit. Apply. If you get a scholarship, it's really only going to benefit you. There's really no negatives. So that's a common misconception, but we want to do what's in your best interest and give you as much money as possible. That's why we're here.
Okay. And then I just want to take a look at some of the questions that were answered by text. The letters of recommendation, so Kat did answer this one as well, but I think you talked a little bit about this earlier, Brianne, but in terms of high school teachers doing the recommendation, I think the common thought is that high school teachers or faculty or maybe an employer. What other people have you seen write or heard of good letters of recommendation?
I'd say the most common is really a high school teacher, because you have them for 4 years potentially, that you've really gotten to know them, they've gotten to know you, you make maybe stronger bonds because you get to see them so much more often than your professors here. So those are really the most common, but if you've volunteered, even if it's someone who maybe they weren't per se your boss, but they volunteered with you and maybe they were just kind of like the lead for the project, I've seen them write really great letters. People who are, like I mentioned before, like involved in a church or a certain organization, those leaders can write you a letter. We really just, the main thing we want is for it to be a very strong letter and show off that this person knows how great of a student you are and bringing all those details to our attention. So we're looking for a strong letter. Really, I've seen it come from almost everyone, and they're not going to be judging that part of it. They're going to be judging the content of the letter.
Just not someone you're related to.
Not someone you're related to, not like a classmate. It has to have someone who is a little bit higher up, more of a leader type position, who can talk about you.
And you said 2 letters of recommendation?
So yeah, you have the opportunity to submit 2 or request 2 letters of recommendation. Really, we're just going to be looking at the first one that you requested. If they turn it in, if everything is good, that's the only one we're going to be looking at. The reason we give you that second option is because in the past, students have requested a letter from that one person, and then something happens and they just aren't able to get it in, and you've completed your application, but that one letter just didn't get submitted in time, so we weren't able to consider you for scholarships at all, and we would hate to see that happen. So we give you that opportunity to request a backup option, basically. So if your primary recommender, they just can't get it in on time, they said they were going to, but they forgot the deadline or something like that, you have that second opportunity to have someone else write you that letter and still be considered for scholarships.
Okay, so your first one should be your stronger relationship.
Yes, the first person you request a letter of, it should be the one that you would like the committee to read.
Okay.
And the second one is just someone hopefully is a backup option, but if we ever want to switch those around, you can in the system. If you are having troubles with that, this is a new system, so just email us. We can switch it for you manually. We're happy to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can't see your recommender's letter.
No, so that's part of the application process. Because you don't, I mean, if the recommender chooses to share the letter with you outside of our website, that's completely fine. We're not going to look down upon that. But we want to give them some opportunity to have it anonymous just in case. But it's completely up to the recommender how they do that.
Okay. And then another question just came in. Do you have to reapply every year, or can you update from your previous application?
You should be able to update. So this is the first time with this new system. So if you're a continuing student and you've completed our application before, you're going to see some changes. This looks a little bit different than it did last year. So I don't believe that information is going to get copied over to the new system. But since this is our first year with the new system, if you're submitting it now, it should, I believe, get copied over to the next year.
Or next year. Okay. And then I want to remind everybody, the application is open now, and it closes when?
January 9th.
It closes January 9th. And is there an advantage to submitting it now, tomorrow, versus on January 9th at 11:59?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
So you really can take those full 3 months. If you want to complete your application now, like, get it started on it, get everything in the site, and then maybe sit on it for a week and then go back in there and see if you want to change anything or you want to improve anything. That's completely fine. Just don't forget to submit it by January 9th, because if you don't press that last button, you're not going to get read. So feel free to sit on it for a little bit. Just don't forget to submit.
That happens, it seems
It
like.
It does. It does happen.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then could you tell us a little bit about the other scholarship opportunities? Like, what else do you all do?
Yeah.
You're not doing this scholarship thing the whole year.
No, so this is something we work on all year.
All year.
It does take a long time to award all these scholarships. So this is basically one part of our job is awarding scholarships through UC Davis. Another part of our job is we do outside scholarships. We kind of host that part of our website. If you go onto our website, which is listed, you can go onto the outside scholarship section. There's different categories where we're trying to help students find outside scholarships that they want to apply to. So those are a little bit different from these just because you're competing with people nationally, internationally for these scholarships. So this application, you're really only competing with students on campus who have a 3.25 GPA and complete that application. That's going to be such a smaller applicant pool than these outside scholarships, but they're still really good options. So like I said, there's different categories. So there's a gender one for females, if you want to look at those. If you're in STEM, you can look there. If you are going to plan on studying abroad, there's a study abroad section, scholarships specifically for study abroad students. And then we also work on prestigious scholarships. So those are for very high achieving students who apply for these very prestigious scholarships that are nationally and internationally. So if you are really into research, or you want to study at, let's say, Cambridge or Oxford, there's specific scholarships for that. Those GPAs are going to be a little bit higher, maybe more on the 3.7 GPA range, but we do have a dedicated advisor specifically who handles all those scholarships. So if you are a high achieving student and you want to learn even more opportunities for scholarships, he's a really great person to talk to. His name's Scott Palmer. And those are very large scholarships. I'm talking like $10,000 around.
Wow.
So it's a lot of money that these people are trying to give out. And the application process is more detailed, but they're great opportunities as well.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask you one last question and put my one last call out to all of the attendees. See, one more showed up. So let me ask the students question first. Is there a different application for study abroad scholarships?
That's a great question. So if you are studying abroad in the normal academic year, so not summer, all of the scholarships that you'd be applying through this application can be for study abroad. As long as it's like approved UC EAP program, you can use our scholarships while you're studying abroad. Summer is going to be a little bit different though. These scholarships are not for summer. They're only for the full academic year. Summer study abroad, there are our outside scholarships. So like I mentioned on our website, there's a study abroad category on the outside scholarship section. Those might have some study abroad specific awards. I also know a really good resource is the study abroad office. They do a whole other application for their awards. And so if you are studying abroad, I would recommend reaching out to them because they give out a lot of money as well, specifically just for students who are participating in their programs.
Okay. And the picture of the hallway here on the screen.
Yes.
How often or do you change those flyers?
We change it all the time. So she was mentioning this is the hallway once you get up onto the second floor of Dutton Hall and you take a left and you can see our office, just walk straight down the hallway. This is on there. So we are updating this, I would say, at least once a week on new outside scholarship opportunities. So if you are ever even just in the range of Dutton Hall, I would just come up, take a look at what we have listed. You don't even have to come bug us. You can just take a look at the board right there and see a bunch of scholarship opportunities. Okay.
So we have 2 minutes officially by my clock here. So you mentioned this a little bit earlier. Can you briefly talk about suggestions for getting to know your professor? And the student that asked this, I want to let you know, you can also come in and talk with the dean's office, talk with your major advisor. Brianne did talk a little bit briefly about that as well. But you know, there's lots of people that you can ask, peer advisors, ask them how they get to know their professors as well. But come visit us in the dean's office and we can also give you some tips on that.
Yeah, I would say my biggest recommendation, at least for when I was a student, is taking more than one class from a faculty member. That's how I got to know so many of my faculty members at my school, and I would feel more comfortable asking them once I had taken more classes from them. They got to know me a little bit more, and that even looks really good in a letter because then they can speak on, oh, she's taken 3 of my classes and she's gotten this grade for all of them, and that is really going to look good in the letter as well. So that's my one big recommendation that I have personally.
Okay. And we're located, the dean's office is located in 150 Marac Hall. We're next to the upside down egghead. I just realized we should have put a picture on this one here too. Our phone number here is 530-752-0108. Maybe one of the panelists can add something to the chat with our contact information for you. Again, we're located in 150 Marac Hall, and we have drop-in advising available daily. What are your hours?
Our office hours are from 10 to 4 every weekday. And like I said, my name's Brianne. So if you ever come into the office, I would be more than happy to come help you. Just ask for me at the front desk.
Okay, so, all right, we're gonna get going. So I wanna remind you that the experts are in the scholarship office.
Yes.
Even though we are hosting, I'm gonna put our video back on. So even though we are hosting, hello, even though we're hosting today, the experts are definitely in the scholarship office.
And we want to help you guys, so definitely come check us out and just stop by and say hi.
But if you're thinking about ways to strategize on improving your GPA, talking with your faculty, all of those kinds of things, please come see us in the dean's office, talk to your major advisor. And we hope that this presentation today was useful for you. We also hope to post it somewhere, but you'll probably see the link for that on our Facebook page. Okay, thanks for joining us. Have a great day.